I was going to let you know that if you want to go into the Woodmere site and go to the listings and choose the first one, which is Florence, it'll open it up into part of your code. And if you then click on the small image that shows there, what I have done there is drastically added to your code for doing the recommendation stuff.
Okay, so I see listings, and there's Florence listings, show low listings, and vacant land listings.
Okay, choose the Florence. Chris, scroll down into the details box.
Uh,
Uh, link down there, the left one, the left one.
oh, okay. I see. Cool. So this is a gallery, yeah. So you basically duplicated the link, but with slightly different code.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Go ahead and
Cool.
click there because there's several things that go on. Jason, I'm just giving you a little tour of what I've done. Go ahead and fill that in, Chris. Yeah. Now, what that has done is that it sent an email to a email account on Woodmere, which will in turn send an email to the staff members, of which I am a member, obviously, for right now.
Okay, that's interesting. So you've instead of inputting the email address of who you're recommending to, you've basically hard coded it with one of your own email addresses.
That's
And
right. Mm-hmm.
so it's an innovative use of an existing feature. You've completely changed what the purpose of it, but I imagine it was a quite good base to do that from. It's interesting.
I had a little trouble doing some of it, but most of it was pretty straightforward. It's basically a whole bunch of if-else statements.
Yeah.
Uh, and the thing that I really had the problem with is how to trigger the if else. And so I finally got it by putting a session variable back up in the beginning of that thing, because what I needed into the template wasn't there, and I didn't have a problem a time or two also.
Yeah, a lot of people have problems with not having the right stuff in the templates. I'd have to look at the specifics of the situation. Maybe it's you had some information on one screen, but it wasn't relayed through to another screen or
That's
something.
right, it wasn't
Mm,
posted yet,
yeah.
and I wasn't sure how to post that one item to make sure it got there. So this site doesn't get a lot of hits, so I thought, okay, a session variable is one sure way to get that value over there. And then I modified the template so that if that's what's coming in, it does a different to what you saw there. It adds those extra lines and stuff.
Cool.
So I
Okay,
thank you for your your unbeknownst help there.
no problem. Jacob, shall we do the announce of the feed now?
Sure. All right, and welcome everyone to our 6th weekly Composr chat here. We've got Chris and Bob and Jason with us right now. It is the weekend of some holidays, so lots of people are probably off doing other things. But yeah, we are live streaming and here to talk about how we're all using Composr and ask Chris any questions we all have about doing things in Composr. So Bob, we just got done looking at a feature you implemented in your site. And last week we took a look at all of your stuff. Jason, it's good to see you again. You haven't been here the past few weeks. Yeah, Chris, do you have anything you want to start with, or can we go in? I'm really interested in hearing about some of Jason's sites this week.
Uh, go ahead, guys. Jason, if you want to talk a bit about your sites, that's kind of the format we're going with now.
Okay. One thing that I started working with version 9 was implementing some theme options. Let me see if I can get my screen sharing going here.
Mm-hmm. And Jason, I took a look at some of your sites last week when you had posted in the forum, and you've got some really cool stuff going on. It looks like you have one on like 3D printing stuff, if my memory serves.
Okay, you see in my screen?
Yep, we are.
Okay, I got some things that I re-implemented in the beta 10.1. I got some settings here that I can change to change some of the style and the layout of the header.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
What I did is I added some config hooks, and then I added all the language strings. I had to make a couple changes to the menu drop-down CSS. It was a little conflict with the little menu, the menu change button, that little
Oh yeah.
M that pops up.
Yeah.
I had I think it was a right padding or a right margin or something there that was kind of pushing it off the edge.
Yeah, I often find that whenever I customize the menu CSS, that button just goes off to some terrible position. Yeah, it's a bit fiddly.
It was some changes to the global CSS to implement the config hook, and in the template as well. The global HTML wrap was I put it back kind of the way I think it was OC Portal version 8, where it had separate headers or a separate header.
Okay, interesting.
What I did is I separated the header into 3 different rows.
Mm-hmm.
I can hide the rows and I can change what's in. What we got here. This would be what the default looks like. One thing I added too that I've been working on is a way to test if ad block is being used. So I got a little bit in there. There's allows you to detect whether an ad blocker is being used. I added that in. I changed that. I get rid of that. Okay. But for changing the theme options, I can change the border radius if I wanted a more solid look, a flat look. I can say hide the banner. If I wanted to move the navigation bar to the top and the logo to the bottom. Save that. Okay, so that's what I've been working on.
So Jason, what you've done is you've separated out some different pieces of the header and then made it so that people can use configuration options to change the order of those without needing to change the code themselves.
Right.
And the ad block detection is definitely, I think that's a pretty popular feature that a lot of people would like.
Yeah. Okay. Jason, could you share your screen again? And I'd love to look at the code behind some of these options, see how you've done it. Okay, so for the header 01, if the config option, which has a theme-specific name, is not equal to hide, then you are showing an include, which is including the template suffixed with that option. That's interesting. So you somehow got theme-specific config options going on there. I guess you did that manually. You kind of copy and pasted the hooks for each theme.
Yep.
Cool. So interesting.
I tried to make it so that it could be used by other people. Like you could create another theme, and it would use the theme here to pick up the same custom template with whatever other theme somebody wanted to create.
Okay, so in version 11 we're going to have theme options, so that won't be necessary. But until then, that's a really cool workaround.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, can you go back to your config? I'd like to see the options you have again. The admin config module. Okay, so how's that header 1 content option work? You've got it set to banner there.
The header row content?
Is that actually what we were looking at? And yeah, can we see the code for that again?
There's a config option.
And can we see where that config option is used? I think maybe we were just looking at it before, but I'm not entirely sure. I think it's used in a template. Is it the global template that's used? Okay, so okay. I see. So hide is like a special value, then all the other values refer to a specific suffix. Okay, I get it now. Yeah, cool. It's a clever way of doing it. Okay, and yeah, could we see the config screen again? Let's see what else you've got. Okay, so yeah, the box border radius, that'll be the temp code to reference the config option will be in the CSS, I think. Is that right? There we go. Yeah, cool. Okay, that's pretty nifty. Okay, is there anything else you want to show us, Jason? If you don't want to show us any of your other sites, for example?
I think that's about it.
Okay, that's cool. No pressure at all. Well, does anyone have any questions for me, or shall we move on to talking about our agenda items for today?
I have one more item I'd like to tell you about.
Okay, great.
On the very front page where it has that picture of the featured listing, that is a block that is powered by PHP code. And there's about 500 lines of code in that PHP that...
Okay, can I just pause you there? I'll share my screen so people can see what you're talking about.
On the very front screen.
Mm-hmm. So which part of it?
That right there.
This featured listing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That image above it and the image of the picture are both powered by a bunch of PHP code. And the picture is set up in such a way that it is selected as the featured listing when the user inputs it to the system. On certain holiday days and days and sometimes following days, it switches to a holiday image. For instance, in about 2 days to a Merry Christmas image. Cool. And then right before New Year's, it'll change to New Year's, and it's basically set up for US holidays and stuff. But I wrote that a long time ago, and then with your tip of making a block, I put it on this.
Cool. Excuse me. Okay, any more questions? Very happy to answer questions if anyone has any, or talking about your sites. If not, I will start talking about our agenda items. So first thing on the agenda I wrote down is net neutrality. Now, obviously, this is a bit of a political hot topic, and no one is compelled to have any particular political views when it comes to Composr. I have my own personal views. So I'm pro net neutrality. So it's a bit of a disappointment to me that the FCC is no longer regulating net neutrality anymore. Does anyone else have any thoughts? Because I realized when I wrote this down that I really don't want to dictate what people think about political views. So does anyone want to talk about what they think about net neutrality before I kind of say what I think?
Well, I'll jump in. Mm-hmm. I am torn between both sides of this because I can see advantages to both sides of it. Mm-hmm. And that's basically my opinion, is that we're going to have to wait till it irons itself out and see how bad some of the ISPs get to be with restricting the lower level activity.
I'm really the same way, Bob. Back when it started being a hot topic issue, I actually made a couple videos about net neutrality, and I think if I made those videos today, then they would not be well received at all in the current environment that's very pro net neutrality. Because I also am torn, kind of. I see both sides of it. I see that obviously internet service providers have a lot of power that they can use to harm people, but I'm generally against government regulation, getting involved in things just in general. And then the internet is something so important that's not exactly something I want a lot of government intervention in. But so yeah, it is interesting because I don't think most people who talk about net neutrality realize that my understanding of the US internet market, me obviously being English, is that you have regional monopolies on cable companies, and that while you can choose different internet providers, if you want a net provider with low latency and high bandwidth, then you're going to choose cable. So you're pretty much going to have what could have.
I have a 50 megabyte pipe and 300 gigabytes per month download capability on and I'm with Cable One, which services us. They just went through and laid fiber optics into this subdivision where I live, and are now offering 150 megabyte.
Yeah, I hear some hammering going on. I'm not sure what that is, so please excuse the noise coming from my end there.
Somebody wanting in the... door?
I think my DIY down.
Oh,
Um,
All right.
okay.
Yeah, I've disabled my video, so hopefully I can actually hear you guys better now. So Chris, you were saying basically that most areas have regional monopolies here, and that's
Well, yeah, I don't want to just say it, but I think that's true from what I've
yeah.
heard.
I mean, that's generally true. We've got AT&T and Charter, two main options in the St. Louis area, but I know a lot of places don't have more than one.
Yeah. Okay, so it's obviously it's a very politically charged debate. So it's kind of like roughly it'll be like big government people versus libertarian people, right? So libertarian people wanting to deregulate and big government people wanting to regulate. Obviously, that's a very rough framing of people's
right.
views.
And it's also really interesting because a lot of people who are normally against government regulation are also against large corporations, so then they go the other way on net neutrality specifically.
Right. So my concern is that now that the internet has stabilized a bit, we'll get situations where ISPs will create like cut down internet packages, a bit like TV packages where you like choose your channels.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be like a kind of a rather low bandwidth by default, but say YouTube and Netflix might have higher bandwidth, or you might have like a gaming package where any Steam game has higher bandwidth, but YouTube doesn't. And then the concern is that because there's no competition in certain areas, and people want to reduce their costs, they'll just kind of be hooked into these lower cost packages that decide what sites you're allowed to visit. And the ISPs will make the difference in the pricing back by getting, say, YouTube or Netflix to pay them directly. And if you kind of game theory that out, then in the long term, a lot of people end up switching to these packages. The price for the unlimited packages goes up, and regular startup websites have reduced bandwidth because they're not on one of these packages that selects which sites are fast. So that's a concern. Whether that happens or not, it's obviously unclear.
Yeah.
But I think that's a concern to me.
Yeah, you've with video in particular, it's definitely a concern I have because we already know, that YouTube has a monopoly over online video. By the way, you had mentioned a couple weeks ago you thought that saying the word Trump was what got us demonetized. I can tell you that was not what got us demonetized because we're still being demonetized every week. I think it was probably our talk about immigration last week. And now it'll probably be the talk about net neutrality that gets us demonetized. But yeah,
I'm be an immigrant.
YouTube already has, so much power, and if they start getting even more power at just the bandwidth level, we're never going to have any new players in that field. And with like all of us are running our own personal websites that wouldn't probably be having deals with ISPs unless the hosts that we're using happen to have deals. From a network standpoint, nerdonthestreet.com is hosted on Linode, so if Linode was able to work its way into one of those packages, then I would benefit from that. But yeah, I see where the concern is. In terms of treating the internet packages like TV packages, I know it's not the strongest argument, but it hasn't happened yet. And net neutrality, it was only implemented in 2015. Obviously, the internet, we weren't still on dial-up in 2015. The internet was very close to the way it is today in 2015. We haven't had a whole lot of changes since then. I mean, it's only been 2 years. That is
a fair argument.
Yeah. All the same websites that were popular then are still the websites that are popular now, and we haven't had a whole lot of monumental changes since then. If that kind of thing starts to happen, I definitely would want to see pushback from internet service provider customers. Of course, if there are those regional monopolies, then they're not going to have a whole lot of options, and at that point, that would be when I would say if people want to regulate, then if there's some tangible evidence that it's actually going on and it's something they're actually wanting to fix, then I would be more in favor of fixing something that is already broken than trying to prevent something that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, okay. I would counter this turning into a little bit of a debate. I'd counter 2 points. One big, the ISPs heavily lobbied the FCC and the government to have net neutrality removed. So I think you'd have to question why. Maybe it's simply because they just by default don't want any regulation because it stifles their potential to make changes, or it might be because they have various plans. The other thing is,
oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go on. I was just going to say, right. Yeah. Sorry, I was just going to say, once internet providers start regulating internet sites heavily, if that were to happen, it would become a lot harder to roll that back because the internet itself is a democratic force. So, Jacob, sorry, yeah.
I'm sorry, could you expand on that a little?
No, I was just saying. Okay, so currently, if people want to join together and petition government, fundraise, they will often use the internet itself.
Right.
So in the worst case scenario, if say Patreon's getting blocked or something, that would become very problematic. But I realize that is kind of tinfoil hat territory at that point.
I kind of see where you're coming from, though. You're saying that if it gets to the point where internet service providers are making changes that people don't like, they might be able to block people from organizing to have those things regulated in the future. Exactly,
yeah. Okay, anyone else got some comments on that? Otherwise, I've got something else to say about some further thoughts. Okay, so I was thinking, so regardless of your political views, there is a potential for a problem. So because the kind of government regulation approach has failed, I was thinking, why not take the libertarian approach to the problem? So in an ideal kind of libertarian society, people make rational decisions based on information. So you want everyone to be educated based on the information about what's happening in the market, and then people will make rational decisions. So the idea was to make a little add-on people can install if they want that tells their users, their visitors, if they happen to be on a internet connection that isn't what you could call a true internet connection. It's an internet connection that is prioritizing particular websites and therefore by default deprioritizing other websites. It would be a little bit like in the old days where you said you're running on an old web browser kind of thing. You should upgrade to a modern web browser. You should upgrade to a proper internet connection. So that approach, as I say, is educating the users of the internet that they're not really on a proper internet connection anymore, and hoping that once they have that information, they as people in the market will make rational decisions that will hopefully get them on a proper internet connection.
How are you planning to measure that? Are you going to use JavaScript to ping websites from the client, or measure the speed?
It would be an add-on installed on the website, and there'd have to be some kind of database of ISPs.
All right, so it wouldn't actually be testing their connection to websites. It would be testing what company that they're going through.
Yeah, that is a good point, because you might not be able to tell from the IP whether they are on a limited package, because everyone might be in the same IP pool regardless of the package. So yeah, maybe it doesn't work. Maybe you would have to do some kind of test on it. It's tricky, actually. Yeah, it's a good point.
Any other thoughts about that?
That's all I wanted to say. I just thought it was an interesting thing to talk about. I don't have any, high priority plans for it, but I thought it was just worth discussing.
Yeah, personally, I had someone try and basically spam my forums with pro net neutrality stuff a while back. I've had all kinds of websites put banners up and stuff. Personally, I've got a policy with Nerd on the Street of generally staying out of political and social issues, other than the advancement of free and open software. That's the only social issue that Nerd on the Street is about. Everything else, I just kind of sit back and watch with regards to the company. Obviously, I've got opinions on things, but I want to have the people who come to my website feel like they can have whatever views they want to have and still enjoy my content. So if you made that kind of block, I wouldn't personally use it, but I could see a lot of people probably would.
Yeah, I can respect that. I think that's probably a good idea. Stay out of some of these things. Okay, but the next thing on the agenda that I wrote down is, it's actually a question I have. So we get automated error emails from people's sites, assuming they've still got it turned on. And one of the things I very commonly notice is people somehow when you install Composr and run through the setup wizard, you remove the add-ons you don't want. So let's say, for example, you remove the content privacy add-on. But we noticed from error emails that often whilst those add-ons are removed and the database is back to the website, and we get error messages through about code relating to add-ons where the database tables no longer exist, but the files do. So it's trying to run those files. And I'm just wondering what people's opinions are on or experiences are and how that might happen. I've got my own ideas, but does anyone have any idea what a user might do to cause that? Okay, what I suspect is happening is people are restoring their website from a backup, but leaving the database as is.
Okay.
So for some reason, they've decided they want to revert, and they put all the files back, but they don't realize that they also need to get the database to a consistent state. It just worried me a bit because it happens quite a lot. But I've never had anyone really talk about it. Obviously, I've got a particular point of view because I see the error emails. So it's probably only happening to a small minority of people. But I don't want people to ever receive errors necessarily. And if there's some easy route to corrupt your website, I want us to fix it.
Well, there's
professional. Sorry, go on, Bob.
There's one sure way to do that is when anybody makes the backup, you automatically make a backup of the database. Now, I know it makes it bigger and takes longer to do it, but that's one way to stop that particular instance of doing it. And I always do my backups that way.
Yeah, I think people use all kinds of tools. So some people probably just do very informal backups where they just kind of save the files off from FTP.
I don't like that idea.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I do. Is I download the web server directory, and I also download the SQL database when I do that because I understand that those are separate things. But I can kind of see some people might not.
Okay. Well, in version 11, we're going to try and fix that. We're going to effectively have the Composr runtime know what tables are in the database, and whenever it runs any add-on code, it will check the tables exist for it, and if not, it will exit out of it. This particularly affects hooks, so content privacy being an example. Actually, that's not a good example for hooks, but there are many hooks from add-ons that run and check the tables for those add-ons, and if the files for the hooks are there, we really want the hook to not even try to run if the database tables aren't there. So we're going to make it for version 11 that we put a lot of guards in the code saying if database table's not here, then don't run this, which should solve it. But I can't really do it right now, so I just wanted to understand the problem a bit from other people's points of view.
Is that something a user would see the error message for if that was happening, or?
No, it would be silence.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I wouldn't. I think I understand what the issue is that you're describing, but I don't know if I would even know if that was happening on my website. I don't think I haven't even uninstalled any add-ons, so I know I'm not experiencing the problem, but you're probably the most qualified to answer that question.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is, this is an interesting one. Okay, so what social networks should Composr integrate with? So shall we go through person by person to get an idea what social networks maybe they use and what they think their users might use, and therefore what they think should be integrated into Composr? Jacob, do you want to go through each person and lead this conversation?
Sure. All right. So, Bob, what social networks do you use, and which ones would you be interested in integrating with Composr?
The only one I use is Facebook.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
And would you see any kind of Chris, when you say integrate with Composr, how deep integration are we talking?
Well, that's a good question. Maybe everyone can talk about how they think particular social networks could be integrated. I don't want to, define this. It's interesting to see what people's thoughts are.
Okay.
Well, since you started with me, I do not integrate the two together.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right. Jason, what do you think? What networks do you use?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I primarily Facebook, maybe a little bit of Twitter. Really, the only problem I can see is the way the integration is. Twitter and Facebook make it really hard to integrate the content that you post on their social networks into your website.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can only do it a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of limited to the widgets and their API that they only allow a certain type of interaction. But otherwise, the only thing that I'm really looking for is to push content from my websites onto the social networks.
Mm-hmm. Let me just say that Jason is the author of the Twitter feed add-on, which displays tweets on your own website. It's a cool little add-on he's made. Okay. Jacob, do you want to talk for yourself?
Yeah, I use Facebook and Twitter, and then every 6 months or so I log into Google+, but Facebook and Twitter are the main ones. Yeah, the ability to push, I'm not really interested in having people sign in with outside websites, but or like, you know, some websites just use Facebook for their comment system, but you know, Composr has that built in, so there's not much point in doing that from my point of view. But the ability to author content in Composr and then have it automatically make a Facebook post or a tweet about it, I could see that being useful.
Okay. Yeah, who else uses Google Plus here? I can't say I do. Okay. Google Plus users, I think that they often they use it a lot. At least last time I checked in on that.
Yeah, I get the feeling that a lot of open source, especially Linux-related projects, or people involved with those, use Google Plus a whole lot. Personally, I run a Google Plus page for my company, and it is just horrid every time I sign in. Just trying to upload just pictures. I'll upload an album to Facebook, and then I'll come and try and do the same thing on Google Plus, and it's just way harder on Google Plus. So that's why I don't use it, is just because of how bad it is to use. But yeah, I agree. The people who do use it seem to be quite into it for managing their projects and things that they're doing.
Yeah, last time I checked, Google Plus didn't even have an API, so I don't think we could integrate with it, even if we wanted to. Okay, well, how about YouTube, Jacob? Let's count that as a social network.
Okay. Part of the reason why I have the website is to have something that's not YouTube to fall back on. Like, you know, I'm integrating a different host right now, so I'm no longer relying on YouTube at all to run the website. But I could, well, yeah, Composr is not really set up for video sharing. I know there are some built-in tools. Composr version 10 actually has some video support within the galleries add-on, doesn't it?
Yeah, we've had video support for quite a while.
Okay.
Even galleries or with the media system in version 10 or attachments in older versions.
All right. Yeah, I know the way that I've done it is quite hacky with just basically embeds. So I'm not sure where in Composr you would want to do integration with YouTube. I know YouTube's got their new community stuff that with like commenting and things. I don't really buy into that stuff. But in terms of just managing videos, Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry. Go on.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, like, what would you imagine integrating YouTube into Composr? How would that work?
Okay, well, we do already have some integration. So when you add a video, you can put in the URL to the YouTube video, just as the URL to the video, and it will just automatically embed it.
Right.
You can already paste it into Composr, and it will do a embed via the media system already. And we do have, well, we have an add-on that doesn't work anymore because unfortunately a lot of these companies keep changing their APIs and completely disabling their old APIs after a couple of years. So the add-on we have uses an old YouTube API that no longer works. But what that one does is it pushes out videos you upload to the site to YouTube.
Okay, so you upload it to your web server and then it uploads it to YouTube from there?
Yeah, and what you can then do, which is pretty cool, is you can have it then kind of pull back so that it uses the URL of the YouTube video as the video that it came from. So in other words, you add a video to Composr, it syndicates that video to YouTube, and then the URL used for playing the video in the original record in Composr is turned into the URL for the YouTube embed, and therefore YouTube has effectively worked as a content delivery network and as a transcoding system.
Right.
So it's saving you on bandwidth and stopping you having to worry about transcoding.
But to do that, you do need to upload it to your Composr site in the first place before it gets to YouTube. All right. Yeah, I don't even know how many people do that in this day and age. Just playing videos from a web server, you pretty much have to go through some sort of dedicated video hosting site if you want transcoding options, sometimes just smooth playback in general. Have you seen a whole lot of people using videos just uploaded straight to their web servers? Because I think you've probably got more experience.
I don't actually spend all that much time looking at people's sites, so that's one thing this chat's going to be quite good for.
Yeah.
But I can say that the way people use Composr does vary a lot. So, as an admin as a webmaster of your own website, it probably makes sense for you just to upload to YouTube and then to copy and paste the YouTube URL into a video record. But if you're running a site where other people submit content, it would then make sense to allow people to directly upload videos to the site because they don't want to have to think about the process for it.
Right.
And then have it automatically syndicate and pull back through, as I discussed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it really depends who's uploading the content. Also, for some large organizations, they can't realistically train their staff to the degree that a webmaster would be trained.
Right.
Yeah.
So if let's say you're running your own social network and you want to allow people to upload their videos to your website, and you were to use that plugin for YouTube, you would be uploading other people's videos to a channel that you own.
That's an interesting point. Yeah. Yes, I think that's the case right now. We do have an add-on for Photo Bucket where you can actually you can log in with Photo Bucket as a user of the website, and after you do that, your attachments will go through to Photo Bucket. So there is a model for doing that. And ideally, in the ideal world, any syndication add-on we made would have functionality both for going to a central site and for going to someone's own site, and it would be configured in the admin, which it would do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually taking notes here. This is interesting, this little discussion here. Yeah, okay, so I've written down a few things about different broad kinds of integration. So there's pushing to the central network. So like you upload to YouTube and it's just syndicated across to your shared YouTube channel. There's pushing, then pulling back, like I discussed. So it pushes it, then it uses that network as a content delivery network. There's pulling, so that might be you have like a YouTube channel and you've got someone managing that channel and you just want to pull all that content back onto your own website. So it would create video records, presumably using the YouTube URLs as the URL for those video records to do automatic embeds. And I'm just thinking there's another kind, I guess we could call it listing, where it would be like a block and it would list everything on some remote site and it would just hot link out to that site. And sign in, so signing in with Google or Facebook or Yahoo, whatever it might be. And what I'd love, and I'm not sure anyone does this right now, I'm not sure how feasible it is comment syndication, two-way comment syndication. So if you have a video record on your site and you have the equivalent video on YouTube, in the ideal world, all the comments on each one would be the same. So if someone posted on the website, it would syndicate that comment up. And if someone posted a comment on YouTube, it would syndicate that comment back to Composr.
Yeah, that would be very ideal.
It would, because then you're not splitting your audience. Right. I think the only problem with that is we couldn't get the user accounts to sync. So if it's syndicated from Composr, it would be posted by the channel itself, and it would have to have a little note saying this is a syndicated comment, and similar in reverse. But I would love to be able to do that. That would be cool. Okay, well that's my thoughts on that topic. Anyone else got any thoughts, or should we move on to the next thing? Yeah. No? Okay. Okay, just Google AMP. Is there anyone here aware of Google AMP? or shall I give a quick intro? I should probably give a quick intro
Probably.
anyway for anyone listening. So Google AMP it's quite interesting. It's a way of having your mobile website run very fast. So it's Google Amplifier, and it's a very kind of Google-centric system. So you build your site in a certain way. You use certain HTML, and you include Google's AMP libraries into that site. And then Google will recognize it's a Google AMP site when it indexes, and basically it will cache your site so that when anyone visits it, it can load from the Google cache very quickly. And there's certain requirements about how you build it that go. For example, I don't think you're allowed to use your own JavaScript. I think you have to use kind of Google certified widgets. So there'll be widgets for rating or widgets for commenting and all kinds of things. But because these are all running from Google servers, they are cached across any site you go to. So it doesn't have to independently download the styles and JavaScript and HTML for these widgets for every site you go to. So there's a huge advantage that this makes your site very fast. It's almost running like an app, because it's almost a case where the site is kind of just defining the unique content for the site rather than all the layout information or the JavaScript code and having that being completely custom for the site. But the disadvantage to me is that you are completely tying yourself to Google for your mobile strategy. And it is a bit of a closed system. Google didn't consult anyone when they were doing it. At least they didn't consult anyone publicly. They did it in a very closed way, and then they just kind of announced it to the world. So it turns me off a lot because it's kind of antithetical to the open web, that they do it like that they'd make it depend on Google's own servers. They'll make it fast based on how people access via Google, and that they develop the specifications secretly. I really don't like that, but I do like the speed of it. So that's why I wanted to talk about it. I figure this is probably new for everyone here. Maybe Google AMP is something that publishing companies are very aware of because they really want people to access their news content, for example, fast. And that's the big advantage when the content being accessed is kind of long form journalism, and really all people care about is the words rather than the site itself. It works really well for publishers because it encourages people to really quickly go to their content on their site and read it and see their ads, even if it is via Google's their own site serving the content rather than something like Facebook articles. And Google do prioritize. That's another advantage. I didn't say Google prioritize the AMP side. It's high in the results because they are going to load fast. I think they have like a carousel at the top of the mobile search where they have news articles that relate to your search, and they will open in like half a second or something. So that's another reason why publishing companies love it, because it really gets people going to their content.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not allowed to use custom JavaScript, would a Composr website even work? Have you done this with Composr before already for any websites?
I haven't. I don't think there's any reason whatsoever you couldn't use Composr. It would just be a matter of templating so that you're outputting AMP widgets rather than generic HTML and JavaScript. So you're restricting yourself on what you're outputting, and you're specifically using the widgets Google provide. It's kind of like the Google AMP libraries you include are kind of like a JavaScript library, like a jQuery UI or something. So it's not that different from making a normal website. It's just you're very much relying on Google and doing things Google's way.
Bob or Jason, you guys have any thoughts on this?
I can see where setup like that would be good for a really specific app type website. For some of the stuff that I do, I kind of like to have more control over everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably something that I wouldn't look at.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So in the add-on for it, I think, and you just turn the add-on and you get a Google AMP URL, and Google will start indexing it. But the problem is we'd have to recode every single template to be AMP compatible, and we'd have to maintain all that for a limited audience. So maybe it's something in the future that someone would make an add-on for if it interests them. but I don't think I can personally prioritize it right now because it's a lot of work for a very limited number of people, and philosophically, I'm somewhat opposed to it. Okay. Should we move on to the next agenda item?
Sure.
What parts of the admin dashboard do you use? And I know, Jacob, that I'm not sure you use any of it. I remember you saying in one of your videos, and I know a lot of people basically don't even use the admin dashboard.
Yeah. I use the update block.
Okay. So Jacob, do you want to lead through everyone again and see what everyone thinks about this?
Sure. I mean, yeah. Bob, what parts of the admin zone do you use, or the admin dashboard?
Style section.
I think we're just talking about so the dashboard is just the front page. So when you first go to the admin zone, that page.
Okay,
right. So remember, it has the checklist, and it has the update the software thing, and it has notes, and you can compare yourself against other sites and that kind of thing.
Okay, I use the upgrade, obviously. And I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about because the board I see has got several blocks at the top, and that's what I was talking about. Now, if you're talking about other things down below that.
Yeah, okay. We're using the term block as in Composr block, so not just. I think you're thinking about the menu items. Let me log in and share my screen, and we can actually see what we're talking about.
Okay.
Okay, so here we go. I'll just do a quick talk through. So the admin zone dashboard is the front page.
Okay, I see what you're talking about now. Okay.
Yeah, front page to the admin zone. It's got the tasks, so it kind of tries to tell you what you need to be doing on your site, and this is configurable. So this is just a test site, and it's saying I should write a blog post because I've never written a blog post. And there are options for saying how regularly you should do it. So it helps you to keep up to date with all the various different things you should be doing on a site. Tells you the latest version, shows you topics in the staff forum, shows you some tips, shows you some Composr news. I'm just wondering if this news is backwards. Do people expect the most recent news to... Oh, no, it isn't. No, I'm just confused. It's fine. Shows you the latest activity on your site, so it's a version of the action log. Lets you type in some custom notes, lets you compare yourself to other websites, and provides you some links to very common websites that you might want to use. So that's the admin zone dashboard. Lots of useful things, but whether anyone actually uses these useful things is another question, and I heavily suspect people don't. So back to you, Bob.
Okay, I do use the link in the upper right-hand corner to do upgrades.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I will check things in the other. It's kind of nice to know that I've waited too long to do a backup. There might be an interesting way to make that a little more useful is that if you edited a file, then reset the time since you last did a backup and make it more important.
That's interesting.
So that you don't sit there for 2 weeks and not make a backup, and then something actually happens, and now I've got to go recode that again.
Yeah, so in that situation, maybe the backup time would also take into account, but it rather than being the time from the last backup, it would be the time from the last file change. So if you had it set to doing backups every month, it would check to see if you've done a backup within the last month of making a file change. Is that what?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah, that's interesting. We should probably do that.
That's what we call a CYA.
You have to fill me in on that. Oh yeah. Okay, cover your
Yes.
Okay, I get it. Okay. Back to you, Jacob.
Yeah, I use quite a bit of a dashboard myself. I use the checklist often to make sure that I'm at least paying attention to what needs attention. I use the update block to do all my updates. I like the useful external links. I add some of my own in there. And the action log is helpful too.
Okay, so let me go. Sorry, Jacob, go on.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at the checklists. It's interesting that Bob and Jason both seem to use that a little bit. Mine's still telling me I need to send my first newsletter issue. I need to set up a scheduler and lots of things that, submit to OpenDMOZ. I don't even know what that is. So there's lots of things in here that don't really. That's why I've generally ignored that block because it's got a lot of things I don't care about in it. I'd never realized until right now, though, how easy it is to add custom things. I see the text box at the bottom now that I'm actually looking at it, and how you can add how often it recurs. That's very useful. Maybe decreasing the amount of default stuff there, or making more general default stuff might make people less likely to overlook it.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned OpenDMOS. I think we've taken that off now because that doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
So that's why you don't know what it is. Okay. Maybe we should put this to democracy. So I'm just going to write down, have a vote about what goes into all the default blocks. Okay. Can you see my screen, Jacob?
Yes,
Do you see how you can edit the links to like this?
I do see that.
It's pretty cool. If you want that. A lot of this is most useful when you've got a whole team of people maintaining the website because it's a kind of a collaboration thing. Because obviously you can just use your own bookmarks if you're just using it for yourself.
Right.
Okay. Definitely, I've experienced a lot of people who don't use any of this. And my thoughts are maybe most people would just prefer to see an embed of Google Analytics on the homepage. So they don't have to separately log into Google Analytics. What do people think about that?
Would this be an embed? How closely would it be tied down to Google Analytics? Because I use Piwik as my anti-Google tendencies tell me to.
Yeah, okay. So that's a separate thing, I think. Most people use Google Analytics. I think we can agree on that.
Yeah.
So separately, I would love us to support, how do you pronounce it again? Piwik, is it?
Well, that's how I pronounce
Piwik,
it.
Yeah. I'd love us to support that too. I know that's a really good system.
Even without supporting it, though, I'm just saying if you replace all of these blocks with one block that's a vendor-specific thing, anyone who's not with that vendor, it's still going to be just as useless of a page.
Right, of course, yeah. It obviously wouldn't embed Google Analytics if you hadn't configured Google Analytics.
All right.
And it would be kind of like the most simple analytics you'd want. So we can talk about that too. So shall we just take a bit of a tangent? I know we're going on a few tangents here, but we go around everyone and say, what are the key things you'd like to know? Just open it up, not even Google Analytics, just key things you want to know about anything. Jacob, do you want to start, then go through everyone?
Yeah, in terms of analytics,
anything though, but yeah.
Well, I don't know if anything. For analytics, I like to know how many hits I'm getting. I would love to know how many unique visitors I'm getting because that's something that the Composr blocks, the analytics blocks in Composr don't always show, and that's something that Piwik does tell me. And I know Google Analytics would tell me a lot more accurately than it seems like Composr just counts per hit, which is much easier. But yeah, the number of unique viewers or unique visitors would be very helpful for me.
And I pause you just there. By that, do you mean a graph, like a line chart?
Even numbers would be fine. If I go to my website right now, the side says hits today 1,443. I know that 1,443 people have not seen my website today. So I would love it if it said visitors today 12 or however many there have been. I know that's much more complicated than tracking hit views. I know that's why you haven't done it, and that's why I use Piwik, because it has that functionality and Composr doesn't. I get why it's not in there, but if you're asking what analytics would be helpful, that would be helpful.
Yeah, okay, well, the conversation is about integrating external tools anyway. So if we integrated Piwik or Google Analytics, then that's fine.
Right.
We're just doing kind of really blue sky here, so we don't have to worry too much about how we'd actually do it. Okay, let me ask you this. Would it be better as a line graph? Because to me, that's pretty easy to read and it gives you more context. And I don't think I personally want just a single figure.
Yeah, I mean, a line graph is how I look at it in Piwik.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so we'd have a line graph of Okay, would you only want uniques, or would you want uniques and hits?
I don't mind the hits. I like having the hits on my sidebar because it makes me look very popular. But the uniques, I think, are more of an accurate representation. I don't know how many people are actually going to my website right now through Composr.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Okay, so I stopped you, but please continue with your.
Oh, that was basically the only thing for me. I actually don't put probably as much stock in analytics as I probably should. I don't use Google Analytics, but I do use YouTube Analytics, and they give me way more information than I ever actually use. So yeah, I'm good with whatever is integrated.
I have 2 points there. First being, maybe you don't put stock into it because you don't have time to go viewing these analytics.
Yeah.
I certainly don't. So if we can get the most important stuff onto the dashboard, I think that really helps people. It certainly would help me.
Mm-hmm.
And the second point is, yeah, these analytics tools can be really overwhelming. Certainly Google Analytics is. So if we just pick exactly what we want to know, what we care about, that solves that problem too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me make some other suggestions. So do you care about how other competing sites are doing?
Do I care about how other competing sites are doing?
Enough to be able to want to check it on a daily basis.
I don't know if daily basis.
Yeah. Okay. What about visitor countries?
That's an interesting statistic. I always like looking at it. I don't actually take any action because of it, though.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think there is a distinction, isn't there, between things that are interesting that might evolve how you think about your site versus things that tell you about your actual ongoing performance. And I think it's the performance that people need to check most commonly, and that we'd want to integrate. Okay. Beyond analytics, is there anything else you want to see on the dashboard?
Some sort of way to get to commonly used or last used things. Like I go into the template editing section very often. If I didn't have to click through style, themes, edit templates, if there was a way I could, obviously we can add custom links. I've already added one custom link to my dashboard just by editing the dashboard template. But if there was a block where you could see your most recently used admin zone items or pages, that would be pretty helpful.
Okay. Obviously for something like a template, if you've edited the template, it would be on the action history. But yeah.
Okay.
So,
yeah, that's true.
But actually getting to pages, yeah, that would be cool. Would that be automated? So it would automatically do some analysis to see what you're going to commonly. Would it be
commonly would be
a history?
Yeah, commonly would be more complicated. I would be very happy with just something that said, here's your last 3 or here's your last 10 used admin zone modules.
Okay.
Just in order of when you've accessed them.
Interesting. What if we did it a different way? What if we made it so when you put on the drop downs, it highlights what you've been to recently somehow?
I've memorized the stuff I use often. Might speed me up a fraction of a second, but.
Okay, so no, yeah, okay, cool. Okay, shall we move on to someone else?
Sure.
Jason, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll probably echo the same thing. Analytics would be good. Just on unique hits. Maybe even the same thing that Google Analytics provides with how much time is spent. And the same thing too with the having some sort of a block with a list of the last or most recently used admin area content stuff.
Okay. Okay. What if we had a really easy way to edit the dashboard? Like, okay, so I'm still sharing my screen. What if we had a little button here that you pressed, like a cog button, and you simply checked off what you wanted to show, and then it would automatically lay out the dashboard based on knowing the dimensions of each block in a sensible way? Would that be good? Or maybe you can make it so you can actually, this is obviously getting complicated, but we're doing blue sky here. So if we actually decided the exact layout with a little kind of drag and drop thing.
Just the ability to select what blocks are there I would personally like I said, did go in and edit the dashboard template once to add a custom link to the news adding page. But since I had to go in and, add the HTML, like, it's not actually that hard, but it is a little bit of a hassle to go and edit that page. So if there was a way to edit it as a Composr page with just putting blocks in, then that would be useful for me. What do you think about it, Jason?
Oh, well, you can't do that right now. It's just actually a Comcode page. There we go.
Oh, I see. All right. Well, are there other blocks, though, that make sense to put on the dashboard that have, like, recently used or links to things on the dashboard?
No, but we can add them.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, my concern is that's a bit too complicated for people. I think even asking them to let using Comcode is a bit too complicated.
Right.
So we talked before about the idea of the tile-based view. To me, just having a simple set of checkboxes and then deciding the order based on the sizing and some concept of the precedence probably would be good. And then I guess it would just rebuild the Comcode automatically for you.
Mm-hmm. Jason, do you have any thoughts on that before we move on to Bob?
No.
Let's see. Bob, what do you think about it?
Excuse me. It's interesting, the discussion you've had, and a lot of that probably would be nice to have. In my case, on the main site that I have to work on, the analytics would be the best thing that would show up for us.
Mm-hmm. Just again thinking blue sky, and I know that's a terrible word, but in this situation I think it's good. Is there anything you just want to know that you don't have time to look at beyond just the a unique visitor graph? Because to me, if I look at the links down here, for example, we have quite a lot of, like, Facebook hits, for example, hits to your personal Facebook page. How much your site's being shared. Maybe if you've got a YouTube channel, your YouTube dashboard too. I might be overcomplicating it, but to me, there's probably some more stats beyond just the core analytics that might be useful. Or maybe
it's interesting that you've got like links to Google Analytics and Facebook Analytics here, because when I want to manage my Facebook page, I go to Facebook for that. When I want to see YouTube Analytics, I either open up the YouTube Analytics app on my phone or I go to YouTube. But it sounds like Bob uses the links more. So what do you think about that kind of additional links, Bob?
I don't use those links.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I'm overcomplicating it. Maybe just having a pulse of visitors, how that's changing over time is enough. And then everything else is going to co-vary with it anyway. So shares is probably, if you're doubling your hits in a week, you're probably going to double your shares in a week too, very roughly. And if you want to dig into that more, you can do. So maybe just having the graph would be enough for the vast majority of what people want. Okay, so I've written some notes here on what we should probably change. So we should make a simple set of checkboxes to decide what you're going to have on there. And then we should automatically regenerate the Comcode and lay it out for you. We should vote about what links to have by default democratically as a community here. And, oh, I'm not showing my screen, sorry. Let me do that again. What links we should have here and up here as default custom tasks. We should have an analytics block available. Ideally, we would have it pWick, but initially I think it would just be Google Analytics. Maybe we can persuade Jacob to do a pWick block, but I don't. You don't have to, Jacob. That's just to be cool. Change how the backup figure works potentially, and adding a block to show the recent sections you've been visiting, with potential for making it a bit more sophisticated and doing it based on what you're going to most commonly. Does that about summarize what everyone thinks?
I think so.
Cool. Okay, well, we've overrun a bit, so that's good though. We've had a good discussion today. So we're going to decide when we're going to do this next week. So there is another guy on the forum who might potentially join. Let me just check what he said to me. he is available after 4 p.m. EST, which is 3 p.m. CST. Okay. What if we made it, because I'm in the US still and we don't seem to have any other Europeans, what if we made it something like 8 p.m. CST next week?
That would work for me.
Would that work? Let me check here if it's all right.
It's all right.
Okay, I'm instructed 8:30 is better.
All right.
Does that work for people? That'd be 8:30 to 9:30 CST. So that would be 9:30 to 10:30 EST. We all good?
It's fine with me.
Great. Okay, let me write that down before I forget. Okay. That's everything then. Thanks everyone for coming. It was a great discussion. I'll see you all next week at that time.
All right. Bye, everybody.
But you don't have to, by the way. You're not compelled to come next week if you don't want to. It'd be great if we could see you all. Okay. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.